Hello, this is Keith Hall and welcome back. Today's tutorial is going to be part two. It's an extension of what we talked about last week, which was basic filtering in Python. Um, Please refer to my previous video on how I set up our data frame, getting a number of rows of the data frame, and listing out of the columns in our data frame. Today, we're just going to be talking about other filtering options, meaning how we could get things filtered by using and or conditions. We're also going to be talking about null filtering, meaning is there any nulls in our data set or our data frame? And then we're going to be talking about memberships and exclusions, okay? And then at the end, we'll be talking about how to get information regarding ranking and thresholds. Meaning, this one example, we'll talk about the top 5 revenue customers that came from our retail channel in this data set. So let's first go up here. We're first going to try to get orders from the North region and where the quantity column is greater than 10. So what we do is we enter in Python mode equal py, we tab into it, and of course, as you can see, we're using Microsoft 365 to use Python in Excel. Okay, I'm going to create a data frame called filtered, and that's going to be set equal to our data frame. And then I'm going to pass it into our data frame, our conditions, our filtering criteria. So again, we're going to ask the data frame, we're going to pass in the column called region. And then we're going to ask it, is it equal to north? Okay. And then we're going to close at that. We're going to first, because these are two conditions, what I want to do is I want to start it out with, put that in brackets, that's one condition. And then I'm going to ask it, is the quantity greater than 10? So data frame, we're going to pass it to quantity column, tab into that, and then is it greater than 10? We're going to close out that, and then we're going to close out the filtering with another square bracket. And then I'm going to press enter at this point because I have another line of code filtered. Okay. I'm going to pass this filter data frame a list of columns that I only want displayed. So meaning instead of displaying all the columns in our data frame, I just want to reference the region column and the quantity column. Close out that, close out that. Commit these changes, you press Control Enter. Okay, give it a second. Okay, it brought back a data frame. I'm going to click on this. And as you can see, it brought back the two columns that I want to reference, the region and quantity. You can see it brought back 547 rows that fit that criteria, meaning region equal north, quantity greater than 10, as you can see here. Okay, now let's go on to the next example. We're going to see if the status column, okay, in our data frame is equal to shipped or delivered, or meaning, okay, so now we're going to do equal py, and then data frame. I'm going to pass in the filter that I want. Data frame, we're going to look at status column. Is it equal to shipped. Okay. And now we're going to close out. Oh, wait. Yep, that's right. And let me go back up here. I want to create a separate condition. Okay. Now we use the OR symbol, which is the pipe symbol. Okay. And we're going to create another condition. Pass in the status column. We want to access the status column. Okay. Now is that equal to delivered? Close out the condition, close out the filter with another square bracket, Control Enter to commit the change, brought back a data frame. And if we scroll over is the status column. Let's see where the status column is. Status column is here. Okay. Looks like a majority of them, we got 1,900 records back. The status is delivered or shipped or whatnot. So it's delivered or shipped, and that's what we were looking for. Okay, let's go on to the next example. Now we're going to ask it, is the product line equal to laptops, and is the unit price greater than 1,000? Okay, we're going to do the same thing, equal py, tab into that. We're going to use the same data frame I used up here, which is filtered. So it'll just get overridden here. We're going to pass in the data frame. And then we're going to tell it to create a condition of data frame, product line. Okay. Now is that equal to laptops? Tab into that. Let's see. Now we want to close out the condition. And then we want it to be also equal to where the unit price is greater than 1,000. So we're going to create another condition. Pass in the data frame. We're going to access the unit price. Is it greater than 1,000? Close out the condition. And now we want to close out the filtering of the data frame. Going to press enter, filtered. Now we want to pass in a list of columns that we only want to be brought back into this data frame subset. Product, comma, unit price. Control enter. Okay, let's click into this. So as you can see, brought back 219 rows. Okay, all of them where the product line is equal to laptop and the unit price is greater than 1,000. Okay, now I'm going to go a little bit further to show you how Python does its filtering. Okay, and it's going to be like this. It creates a Boolean mask of trues and falses. So what we want to do is I'm going to copy this over here. The first condition is going to be evaluated first, which is this condition here. Okay. Let's bring this over here. I'm just going to copy it. Control C. Let's go over here. go over here, equal PY, tab into this. Now I'm just going to paste that in there. And then I want to return back just the first 20 rows in this example here. Okay, Control Enter. So it brought back a series because what it is, it's a Boolean mask, and it only has one column value of trues and falses basically. So let's do this again, and I just want to put in 20 rows instead. So dot head, meaning you could pass it the number of rows that you want it returned. Okay. Okay, now I just want to spill the results. Control Shift Alt M. Okay, so what this is doing, it took this condition against our data frame and asked it, is the product line equal to laptops? And what that will do for every single row in a data frame, it's going to bring back a true or false for each and every row, as you can see here. So I only did like 20 rows. So now the second condition is right up here. Let's go back up here. The second condition is whether or not the unit price is greater than 1,000. So I'm going to, let's do this. Control C. Let's go back here, equal PY, tab into it, paste that, dot head, control 20, Control Enter, Control Shift Alt M to spill the results into Excel values. Again, what that second condition does, it asks whether or not the unit price for a specific row is greater than 1,000. If it is, it returns true. Otherwise, it returns false. So these are two Boolean masks that get created first, okay? Out of these two conditions that we passed it. The third step of Python evaluating that is taking these two Boolean masks, okay, and combining it to return one Boolean mask. So basically, it's going to look at these two masks row by row, and it's going to determine whether or not this row needs to be returned because we gave it two conditions. So in this particular case, the first row, the first condition returned to false, second condition returned to true. So the result here for this row is going to return false because both conditions were not met. So when you have a true and a true, we'll get a true over here. If you have a false or a true or vice versa, you're always going to get a false. So let's do the two conditions now together. Okay. Let's go over here. Line. Okay, we got that. We got that. Control C. Escape. Equal PY. Tab into that. Do that. So we got two conditions in here together. So now what we want to do is return the first 20 rows. So we're gonna put another set of parens here. Dot HED head 20. Okay, Control Enter. Brought back a series, Control Shift Alt M to spill the results. Just a minute. Oops. There we go. So as you can see, for the first 20 rows, everything's going to be false that gets passed to our data frame because we didn't have a row in the first 20 rows where both conditions were met. So either we have a true and false, false and false, or we have a false and a true. So this is basically how Python evaluates it. So once it evaluates the first condition, then it evaluates the second condition, then it brings the two conditions together to result to create a third Boolean mask, and this third Boolean mask gets filtered out. So then at that point, it says for row number 1, don't return it because it's false. If it encounters a row that says true in this situation, then it returns that row for us in this data frame up here. So now let's go over here. Now let's look at how we can do null filtering. Basically, are there any fields in our data frame that have null values in it? So in this particular case, we're going to look to see if orders have a missing delivery date. Okay. So in other words, you'll see that we're going to be using the isNull function, and it returns true for entries that are missing or have a NaN value, meaning not a number. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do equal Python, tab into that, pass it our data frame, and then ask it data frame, look at the delivery date column. We're going to close that out, and now we're going to use the isNull, and then close out the filter, Control Enter. Now click on this. Now as you can see, it only brought back one row because I already know this is a 5,000 row data set, and I already specifically went into this particular record, this particular row, and deleted the value in the delivery date column. So as you can see over here, delivery date, okay, NAT is what's in there. So that's number one. Another way you could look for null values is whether or not orders with a filled in product description. In other words, we have a column over here, look to the left, it says product description. We're looking to see if the product description column is null. So what we're doing over here is, in this particular case, we're going to be using the not NA function, and it returns true for entries that are present or not a number. So this is another way. In other words, what it's asking is it's going to return, okay, it's going to look at the product description column for the values. If it's missing, it will return it in this particular case. But also too, remember that sometimes in Excel or CSV files, if you go in there and delete a value in there, sometimes Python doesn't recognize that deletion as not a number. So we have to add in a couple conditions here to look for a blank string. And you'll see what I'm going to do here in a second. So equal py, okay. And then we're going to pass in the data frame, oops. Let's see, data frame, product description, let's see, not NA. So that's the first condition. And We're going to ask it the data frame, product, oops. We're going to use a string accessor, and we're going to strip not equal to blank, basically. Control Enter. Brings back a data frame. For remember, our original data frame was 5,000 rows, and it brought back one less. It's because I went in to this data set and I removed the value for the description column. Okay, so that's how that works. Let's go on to memberships and inclusions. Basically, we're looking for conditions where uh, in this particular case, orders from selected sales channel. And I'm going to select whether or not it is the sales channel is equal to online or retail. So you'll see here, we're going to use the isIn method equal py, tab into that data frame, pass it the filter data frame, quote, we're asking the sales channel, okay, column, and we're determining that isIn, and we're going to pass it a list of values. Is it online or is it retail? Let's close out the list. Let's close out the condition for isIn, and let's close out the filter. Brought back the filter. Okay, so let's go over to the sales channel column. So in other words, we were looking for to see if each record was either online or retail, as you can see here. Now let's do a not condition. So how do we do this? Same thing, but we want to look for rows that are not in, the statuses are not canceled or returned. So we could do that another way. Pi, data frame. We're going to use the tilde symbol, which reverses our Boolean mask that gets returned here. Data frame. We're looking at the status column. That is in. We're going to pass it a list of values. Key. Let's close out the list. Now we want to close out the isIn function. And now we want to close out the filter. Control Enter. So in other words, the status column, okay, should be something equal other than canceled or returned. Let's go over to the status column. And as you can see, none of these rows here are either canceled or returned. Okay, that's it. Now let's go work on this last one here, which is more in depth. So what are we asking? We're asking, give us the top 5 revenue customers in a retail channel. In other words, we're going to add up the the total price for each row, but we want to group it by customer name, and we want to see if that customer bought our products in the retail channel or retail space. So this is what we're going to do. Equal PY, tab into that. We're just going to call this top 5 underscore summary. We're going to equal that. We're going to use a parens here. Press enter. Okay. Data frame. Data frame. We're going to first ask it. Let's see. Tab into that. We're going to first filter our data frame first by seeing if the sales channel column, okay, is equal to retail. Close that out. Close that out. Okay. So that's it. This is the first part of this script right here. It's first going to filter the data frame first by our retail customers. Press enter. Then we're going to group by. Okay. Dot group by. Okay. And then we're going to group by customer name. Close that out. Let's close that out. And then we're going to select the column, total price. Close that out. So what this is doing, it's grabbing the customer name. We're going to group by the customer name, meaning we're going to add up all the total price count for each unique customer name that exists in the retail channel. And then we're going to dot sum that. Okay. That's what that's doing. And then dot NARGEEST, largest 5. So what this part here does is after it does all this, after it filters it, then after it groups by, let's only bring back the top 5, okay, in that result. Press enter, do that, control enter, brings back a series, okay, see what it did here? Brought back customer name because we grouped by the customer name, and it brought back the total price. So in other words, it summed up all the unique customer names, summed up their values, and brought back the top 5. And that's what it did right here. So hopefully that was informational for you in analyzing a data set in Python. In this case, we're doing it within Excel, and it gave you a lot of different ways that you could filter your data to find the answers that you need as your in your projects. Again, I want to thank you for stopping by today. You have a wonderful day. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and please like and share this video so it gets out to more people. Thanks again. Bye now, and I'll catch you on the next one.